They called it restructuring. But the IMF and World Bank's programs in the 80s and 90s, they weren't lifelines. They were handcuffs. So let's start with what this all is. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, both run by US and European powers, offered loans to countries drowning in debt during the 1980s crisis. But there was a catch. There always is. You only got the money if you signed on to the structural adjustment programs, or SAPs. On paper, they promised economic stability. In reality, they stripped countries' control over their own economies. Governments had to cut public spending, privatize state-owned industries, end subsidies on food and fuel, and open their markets to foreign companies. Translation: schools gutted, hospitals collapsed, public jobs erased, and corporations swooped in to buy everything cheap. Take Jamaica in the 1980s. Prime Minister Michael Manley resisted, but debt forced his hand. IMF reforms meant U.S. imports flooded the island. Local farmers and dairies couldn't compete. And the result? Jamaica went from feeding itself to depending on American canned goods and powdered milk. Zambia had to privatize its copper mines. And who profited? Foreign investors, of course. Who lost? The Zambian people. Poverty spiked, schools fell apart. Healthcare collapsed. Mexico in 1994. After years of SAP-style reforms, the peso collapsed. The U.S. bailed out Wall Street investors, but Mexican workers were left jobless and broke. This wasn't random. Ghana, Nigeria, Bolivia, Peru, Kenya. Same formula, same results. Cut, privatize, depend. And this wasn't just some faceless bureaucracy. This was political. U.S. President Ronald Reagan and UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, the architects of neoliberalism, demanded that the IMF and World Bank export their free market playbook worldwide. It was the 80s version of colonization. The WTO, the World Trade Organization, and trade deals like NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, were built on the same SAP principles. Open your markets, let U.S. corporations in, and kill protections for your people. And the cruelest piece? SAPs forced countries to grow cash crops, coffee, cocoa, sugar, all for export, while abandoning food security. So when global prices tanked, people starved. That was the reality. SAPs weren't about saving economies. They were about making sure that the global south stayed in permanent dependency. So when people sneer and just say that those countries are corrupt, remember this. Their economies were re-engineered deliberately, not broken by accident, broken on purpose.